Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1967. We're going to be taking a look at the Association and they're going to be performing Along Comes Mary. And I've had a couple of requests for the Association. The other video was a performance of Cherish, but unfortunately that was lip-synced and they weren't playing their instruments. So I've gone for this performance because we do have a live vocal. I'm also going to include the intro to the song where they just talk through the band members, and it's like a little bit of a sketch intro to the song because there are some interesting things to point out about that as well. But let's get the guys up on screen and see how they get on.
In order to combat the sudden influx of machines into our society, you see before you this evening a machine of our own construction. You see an association machine, composed of many integral parts, the first being behind and above us, a semi-reclined percussive invertebrator, or drummer. In the center of the machine, we see a flexible rhythm generator known as rhythm guitar. On the other end of the machine, we see a transistorized flexible rhythm generator stamped Made in Japan. To my immediate right, we see a manifold bifurcated tambouriner. I am a consistent low-range modulator. Last but not least, on the other end of the machine stands the largest single component in captivity, an elongated fluting vocalizator. This machine, when programmed correctly, emits a variety of sounds and rhythmic patterns such as as a bunch. When big desire is the fire in the eyes of chicks, and sickness is the games they play. And when the masqueraders play, they never folks think to who's most to blame today. And then along comes Mary. Does she want to set them free and let them see reality from where she got a name? As a punch.
I'm just going to jump in here. As always, the link to this is going to be in the description below, so you guys can watch it the whole way through without me interrupting. But I always mention in other videos featuring bands how it's a luxury to have one guy in the background who can sing and harmonize with the lead vocalist. And here, the Association had such a luxury of 6 in this particular lineup and performance. We've got 6 vocalists. Obviously, we had 7 in other lineups as well. I'm not going to go through all of the lineup changes because in all, the Association have had over 30 separate members, so a lot of chopping and changing. But having that ability to go to so many great vocalists independently and then to get them all to sing together in harmony with each other meant that you got a sound that wasn't regular and it wasn't something that you'd hear every day. But diving into the intro of this song, because it's interesting in that everything is set up live and the intro is live. And you can tell because we're in A for the intro and then we're going to be getting into the song, and you can hear that abrupt cut as to where the intro ends and the recording starts playing in the background. But the recording is just of the instrumentation. We do have live vocals here, so we can analyze the vocals when we start looking at that. When the track starts up, it is obvious that it's not the sound that we've just been listening to, but it is flat compared to what they've been playing in the intro. So during the intro, they're all perfectly in tune, and the track that's being played is slightly flat. And this is something that tended to happen with tape. When it would run a little bit slow, you lose a tiny bit of pitch, and the slower it gets, the lower it gets, and vice versa. If you speed it up, the pitch becomes higher. So the tape, it might have been the case that on the original recording, in fact it was the case, because I've played the two together with this recorded version we're listening to in this live performance with that original that was released on the record, and they are both slightly flat. So they've literally taken the original recording as the backing here, but then just left out the vocals from the mix for these kind of live performances. You'll also notice how Ted Blueshell on drums doesn't have a microphone, so we don't get to hear his vocal part. So really it's just a 5-piece vocal setup that we've got, and it also gives you an idea of back in the 1960s, how TV shows worked and how switched on they were in order to give live performances, and also in the studio to have a version of the song that is mixed without the vocals, so then that can be taken to TV shows and they can just play that backing track, and all they need to do is set up 3 or 4 mics, depending on obviously how many people sing in each band. But it's a lot quicker to set up a microphone than to mic up all of the instruments, especially the drum kits. It just so happens with this, it is a bit weird in that you can still hear everything has been set up for the intro, but then they cut to that backing track for the main performance. This is also something that if you look out for with Ted playing drums in the background, sometimes he's playing fills where there are no fills, and sometimes he's not playing fills when there are fills. And this is something that will happen with musicians, as these guys are. They can, of course, play their instruments and sing at the same time. It just so happens for TV, this kind of thing was done regularly. What you'll find is when you go to watch a great band live, they play however they feel at the time. So it's exactly the same reason why Ted throws in fills and then you can't hear them on the recording, because he just feels like doing it at that time, but he didn't do it in the studio. So you will see that it isn't synchronized with what Ted's playing in the background sometimes, and that's an easy way to spot it, other than just being able to hear the difference between the intro sound and the backing track starting up. So it was the case that they could play their instruments and sing at the same time, and also write songs. That's another thing about the association. With so many members, it must have been difficult to all agree on original compositions, but they had the ability to do that as well. Also, just to clarify that this particular composition was written by Tandin Alma, and it won't surprise you in the slightest to hear that he wrote for the Beach Boys as well, given the sound of this composition and also the vocal arrangement that we've got, and the association were one of those bands that could nail it live as well. So we're going to be getting back into the video for Terry Kirkman's solo.
Sweet as the punch, sweet as the punch, sweet as the punch. as the punch, sweet as the punch.
And there we have it. So, putting the spotlight on Jim Yester with that lead vocal, he has to be so accurate pitch-wise throughout this performance when you consider that he's got 4 other guys who are going to be singing in harmony with him throughout the song, because if he's not on pitch, it's just all going to go wrong, but he is so accurate. He's also got that control of vibrato as well. We've got, most prominently in the mix, Larry on backing vocals, and that's Larry Ramos. And a lot of people assume that Larry was from the Philippines. He was of Filipino descent, but he was born and raised in Hawaii. But he's got that falsetto sound that he goes to with his voice in order to get those higher harmony lines, which we can really appreciate at the end of the performance, because that's just Larry's voice that you can hear hitting those top harmonies. Playing instruments back in the 60s was a given. You had to be able to play live and accompany yourself whilst you did play live and sing. So they have this ability across the board here. Like I said, they have 6 members on stage here. It is a backing track, but they did have the ability to play. And Larry, we can see he would be playing rhythm guitar, and that's just what he's miming to do at the moment. But also Brian Cole, who gives the intro to the track as well, and he's on bass. And we also have Russ Giger, who is going to be playing rhythm guitar as well. And I think that is everybody in the band now that I've mentioned. The other thing that you'll find with the 60s sound was the excessive use of reverb, and we certainly have that in this performance. It's that cavernous reverb sound that we get. They were one of those bands that hit the ground running, because their debut album, released in 1966, which was called And Then Along Comes the Association, got to number 5 in the charts, and this song, Along Comes Mary, got to number 7 in the charts, so it was a huge hit. And another huge hit from the album was Cherish, that I mentioned earlier, because that got to the number 1 spot. They were massively popular in the late 60s and early 70s. The last album that they made was Waterbeds in Trinidad, and that was in 1972. And that was the last album for the band, and also the last album to have the involvement of Brian Cole, because unfortunately he passed away in 1972 at the age of only 29 from a heroin overdose. And that is the last time that they recorded. But it's great to have a look back at vocal performances like this to get an appreciation of the melody and the accuracy in order to harmonize with each other in a live setting. I know we've got the backing track element in there, but these guys could produce a live vocal that was exactly the same as the record. And if you want to catch the Association live in 2020, you can do, because Jules Alexander and Jim Yester are still performing, and they are the 2 remaining members of the original lineup. Unfortunately, Larry passed away in 2014, and his brother Del now plays bass with the band. We have Bruce Prichter on drums, and we also have Brian's son, Jordan Cole, who plays keys and guitar. He's part of the band now, and then completing the lineup, we have Paul Holland. So you can get out there and check out the tour dates for the Association in 2020. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one.